right, everyone, welcome, happy Tuesday. Apparently I cannot spell today, and this isn't one of those platforms you can exactly delete. I think through restream.io, I think I can clear chat, but you know, it's there. Big deal, I'm human, it's a thing. So how's everyone doing today? Happy Tuesday. We made it through the weekend somehow. Yeah, I don't party like that. I don't party at all. Yeah, how's everyone doing? What did I do? I played some Humankind this weekend, and I think that's pretty much it. My daughter's been sick for the past few days. Yeah, it doesn't seem like COVID at all. But we're getting her tested just in case, and she hasn't been going to school or anything. So I think we're still all fine, but I guess we'll see. Wish me luck. And yeah, playing Humankind, and that's pretty much it since the last stream. Yeah, still looking for work, going through that process, and that's it. How about you guys? Anything happening with you guys out there? Do anything fun this weekend? Anything? Bueller, anything? All right. Got some quick links to go over, and then we'll get into Andrew Yang's Forward Party's platform. Yeah, we'll get into that. He has some interesting stuff. A lot of it is basically the same stuff that I have, but he does have some stuff that are different, and some things that he's expounded on. He has some things that I don't have that I should probably add, and he also has some things that I've considered adding in more depth. And I've talked about that on my stream before. For me, one section is kind of implied by the economies for the common good, because that's something that they talk about, and that's something that I've talked about. But maybe I do finally need to add a new section or something. I don't know. We'll see. We'll go through it, because there's a bit there. It's not as it's not as in depth as like what I have out there, but it's not really meant to be that. So we'll get to that. But first. Now, I'm not going to go through this. I've watched this already. It's amazing. Cody and some more news. It's an amazing video. A brief history of screwing over Haiti goes over how much, it's what, 42 minutes of showing how the history of Haiti has been fucked over by colonialism from Europe and from the United States and that sort of stuff. It's a great video. So please watch it. And if you haven't subscribed to some more news, please go ahead and do that. They're an amazing site. I always look forward to their videos because at least I appreciate the sense of humor that they have. You might not, so it might not be your thing, but I do enjoy it. So yeah, definitely watch this video. All right, so next, this is a quick one. So, access to healthy environment declared a human right by UN Rights Council. Now, in my policies here on the Declaration of Unified Rights of Humanity, I don't state it quite like that. What do I say? Unadulterated. I could swear I use unadulterated. Yeah, everyone has the right to clean air, water, and unadulterated and healthy food. You might need to adjust that a little bit to be something more like this. Unadulterated environment and food. I think maybe that's the way I need to change this. But let's go through it. Oh, this one here. All right. In Resolution 48/13, the Council called on the states around the world to work together and with other partners to implement this newly recognized right. The text proposed by Costa Rica, the Maldives, Morocco, Slovenia, and Switzerland was passed with 43 votes in favor and 4 abstentions from Russia, India, China, Japan. At the same time, through a second resolution, 48/14, the Council also increased its focus on the human rights impact of climate change by establishing a special rapporteur dedicated specifically to that issue. So did the United States actually vote for this? That seems strange. Usually anything good, the United States votes against because, profit. Okay. In a statement, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, called on member states to take bold actions to give prompt and real effect to the right to a healthy environment. Silly woman. Ms. Bachelet said that having long called for such a step, she was gratified that the decision clearly recognizes environmental degradation and climate change as interconnected human rights crises. Bold action is now required to ensure this resolution on the right to a healthy environment serves as a springboard to push for transformative economic, social, and environmental policies that will protect people and nature, she added. So, this is all well and good, but it's not binding. It's not. It's it's saying just we know we should do this, so all you fuckers should probably go out and do it, and then they all go whook, and nothing happens. It's the lack of binding, lack of power, the lack of anything. It's like it's great that they're saying this because it's true, but it's much like the Paris Climate Agreement where it's just a bunch of fucking empty words with no teeth. At the beginning of the current session of the Human Rights Council, the High Commissioner described the triple planetary threats of climate change, pollution, and nature loss as the single greatest human rights challenge of our era. Yes. The new resolution acknowledges the damages inflicted by climate change and environmental destruction on millions of people across the world. It also underlines that the most vulnerable segments of the population are more acutely impacted. The issue will now go to the UN General Assembly in New York for further consideration. Oh, so this isn't even in the General Assembly. Okay, so it's just the Human Rights Council, which must be a subsection of the UN itself. Following the passage of the resolution, Michelle Bachelet paid tribute to the efforts of a diverse array of civil society organizations, including youth groups, national human rights institutions, indigenous peoples organizations, businesses, and many others. The High Commissioner also noted that an unprecedented number of environmental human rights defenders were reported killed last year, urging member states to take firm measures to protect and empower them. Now, again, as long as profit is the primary drive for businesses, this is never going to be a thing within capitalism. And within capitalism, this is very unlikely to be a thing. Again, the Nordic states stand as an exception to an extent to the global rule here. We must build on this momentum to move beyond the false separation of environmental action and protection of human rights. It is all too clear that neither goal can be achieved without the other, she said. Costa Rica's ambassador, Catalina Devandas Aguilar, one of the co-sponsors of the resolution, said the decision will send powerful messages to communities around the world struggling with climate hardship that they are not alone. Well, if it's not binding, they most assuredly are still fucking alone, because again, it's great that the UN is doing this and that they're saying this. This is important, but it's not binding. It's not binding. None of these are just words. These are just flowery words that need to be said, but that need a level of enforcement behind it. Otherwise, it's just words. The decision comes weeks before the crucial UN Climate Change Summit, COP26, happening in early November in Glasgow. According to the World Health Organization, 24% of all global deaths, roughly 13.7 million deaths per year, are linked to the environment due to risks such as air pollution and chemical exposure. Oh, I need to get a hold of that, because we read the article previously that said 8.7 million people die every year from climate change, or from pollution. Sorry, from pollution. Now this World Health Organization says 13.7 million deaths per year. That's a huge difference. That's a 50% increase in the number of deaths per year. That's directly attributable to capitalism. I gotta find that. Is that in here? Let's take a look at that. Oh, here we go. Ooh. Fancy. Because I'm going to have to add that to my policies. Capitalism kills more per year. Woohoo! 2016. Okay, I won't go over this, but it's here for you in case you want to look at that, because I'm gonna have to take a look at it. Okay, all right. There's that. Questions, comments, suggestions. Yeah, it's great that UN's saying this, but we need something more than just words. We need actions. We need something that's enforceable. We need shit to change globally, and the United States to not be the problem like we are. Okay. This one is this article is short too. A French study of over 22 million people finds vaccines cut severe COVID risk by 90%. A larger study of its kind also finds vaccines appear to protect against the worst effects of the Delta variant. Now, we've covered an article previously that Pfizer is only, after what, like 6 months, only 77% effective, and the Moderna one is like 91% effective. So just, again, when you're looking at possibly getting booster shots, if you have Moderna, currently looks like you'll probably be okay, but Pfizer, you may want to look into getting a booster if you're thinking about that sort of a thing. If you want links to that, you can go into my Discord or to the Reddit, and the links to all the articles I've covered and stuff are in there, so you can find the link to that article. Okay, vaccination reduces the risk of dying or being hospitalized with COVID-19 by 90%. The French study of 22.6 million people over the age of 50 has found. Okay, so this is the qualifier here. 22.6 million people over the age of 50. So this is the age cohort of 50 and over is where the vaccine prevents the worst of COVID-19 by 90%. Good to know. The research published on Monday also found that vaccines appear to protect against the worst effects of the most prevalent virus strain, the Delta variant. This means that those who are vaccinated are 9 times less likely to be 9 times less at risk of being hospitalized or dying from COVID-19 than those who have not been vaccinated. The epidemiologist Mahmoud Zurich, who oversaw the research, told Agence France Presse, the French press agency, something like that. The study, the largest of its kind so far, is carried out by EPIFAIR, a scientific group set up by France's health system, its national health insurance fund, l'Assurance Maladie, and the country's ANSM Medicines Agency. Researchers compared 11.3 million vaccinated over 50s with the same number of unvaccinated from the same age group between 27 December 2020, when the vaccinations began in France, and 20 July this year. They found a reduction in the risk of hospitalization superior to 90% from the 14th day after the second dose, and a similar reduction in the number of deaths from COVID-19. Similar findings have previously been published in Israel, the UK, and the US. Okay, the vaccine's effectiveness in combating the most serious symptoms of COVID did not diminish during the 5-month period of the study, they said. The results were the same no matter whether the patient was given Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. Okay, so this is a 5-month period. Okay, so yeah, so this is prior to the potential reduction in effectiveness, I think past the 6-month mark. The Janssen one-shot dose authorized later in France was not included, as the researchers felt that there had not been enough patients or time to properly study its effectiveness. Researchers only had a month between the emergence of the Delta variant in France and the end of the study, but results showed the vaccines reduced the risk of serious symptoms and death by 84% among the over 75s and 92% for the 50 to 74 age group. Now, what about people below? This is a very short period to evaluate the impact of the vaccination on this variant, Zurich said, adding that research was continuing into the effect of vaccines on the Delta variant. To ensure the closest possible comparison, researchers paired vaccinated and unvaccinated people of the same age and sex living in the same region. The study looked only at the most serious symptoms of infection and did not examine if the vaccine stopped people from becoming infected or transmitting the virus. Okay, yeah, because that's what the article says in the title. Okay, good. Zurich said avoiding the most serious infections was the main public health objective. An epidemic without serious infections is no longer an epidemic, he added. The report concludes all the vaccines studied against COVID-19 are highly effective and have a major effect on the reductions of serious forms of COVID-19 among people age 50 and older living at the current time in France. The continuing research by Epifair will allow us to measure the evolution of this effectiveness over a longer period and better establish the effects of the Delta variant. Okay, so again, short article. So hopefully we get better data with something. They should have put that in here. 50 and older, 50 plus. Hopefully we get data on this for the below 50 age group at some point. All right, questions, comments, and suggestions on that topic. Now we'll go into the main part of Andrew Yang and the Forward Party and their platform. My God. Okay, there we go. We got through it. Woo! Typing with these on isn't the easiest. All right, so have you guys heard of Andrew Yang and his Forward Party? His book just came out on the 5th. I haven't had a chance to finish it, but I'm looking forward to see what he has to say. I read his first book, which was actually, it was really good. Like the first 75% of the book is about Andrew Yang, is about him talking about the upcoming AI and automation apocalypse. And I talk about that in one of my posts as well. He just gives, really 75% of the book is just shitloads of data on the effects of AI and automation. Well, that was great. And then the last 25% was getting into his policies, which I'm kind of iffy on there. And I've been kind of a little bit given criticism on Yang himself. But he is a capitalist, and I've seen two interviews of him, Crystal Ball, and actually I've listened to 2 interviews, Crystal Ball and Sam Harris, and some other news about him. And he's still, again, we need to keep in mind that Andrew Yang is a capitalist. That's important. One of the interviews he was given, he said he was going to be practical, and that he didn't state that he wasn't going to take PAC or corporate money. He said he was going to be pragmatic or practical. So, this is one of the things you need to keep in mind with him, that this is where he's going to fall. Now, the Forward Party, for me, isn't really a party. It's more like, because if you're not running ballot access and he's not planning on doing it, then, you're not really classified as a party like the Democratic Party, the Green Party, Libertarian, others like that. He's more going to fall in the lines of something like our Revolution, which sprung out from the Bernie campaign, or Brand New Congress, or the DSA, where they're going to support candidates that support their platform. That's primarily what he's going to be doing with the Forward Party. So you guys know, again, they call it a party, and I don't really like that, because for me, that's not really that. It's not really technically correct. So I wish you would have changed this. Forward Foundation, the Forward something, just not party. Okay. So, and looking at some of his policies, which I've already taken a look at some of it already, there's a lot of similarities between what he says, what he has for policies, and also what I have, but there's also some differences. But not a whole lot, actually. There's a lot in common between them, between us and our policies. Although I'm specifically am against corporate money and anything like that, right? I think we should have completely publicly financed elections. Money has to be out of the whole thing completely. And again, if you're going to start a party like this and you're going to take corporate money, you are going to be part of the problem. What else did I want to say prior to getting into this? I think that's it. Has anyone seen any interviews with him? Have any thoughts? Hey, you're purple. Analysis man, how you doing? Well, he's a capitalist, and just like I was just talking about, he's not gonna disavow corporate or rich 1% money. He has some decent policies, and I'm gonna go over those in a little bit. Like for UBI, his implementation of UBI, yeah, it does. It sucks big time. Like when I saw him in the presidential elections, I was like, this guy makes a lot of sense. I mean, like it really stood out to me when he said that Trump was not the problem. He's a symptom of the problem. It's like, fuck yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he gets that. He gets it. And you won't see anyone really saying that. Bernie might be the only person who might say something like that. And he really kind of gets the problems, but his solutions are still very capitalist centric, and he still has that, capitalist center to the way he does things. Like his motto is pragmatic capitalism or human-centered capitalism, right? So now I get why he says that, and honestly, my entire domestic policies is really kind of about that. Although I do take it a step further than he does, obviously, because no corporate money, and I take things a lot more severely than he does because where I stand. Now his policies here, at least, just for what he has here, I don't think it's the same as what was on his presidential policy, his presidential page. I think he had a lot more there, but yeah, still capitalist at heart. So this, yeah, okay, we've got one page here. Pretty much, let's see what his presidential stuff is here. Andrew Yang. Yeah, and okay, Yang for New York. This is Yang for president. Yang 2020 is what it was, right? There we go. Okay, where are your policies? Because I've looked at, here we go, policies. I do not like this. Okay. Freedom dividend, Medicare for all, human-centered capitalism. Did he change this at all? I don't know. Okay, yeah, he has a lot more on here than what he has on his forward party here. All right, so let's go through this. Let's go one by one. Let's hit him and see what he has to say. American scorecard, measure economic prosperity using a wider index that measures human as well as monetary indicators. Okay, so here. Okay, let's just read this. All right, here we go. American scorecard. You can't fix something if you're not measuring the right things. Right now, we use the stock market and GDP to measure our economy and the well-being of our people. But even the creator of GDP thought it was a terrible measure for national well-being. This can easily be seen today as the stock market and GDP have grown, life expectancy and mental health have declined, which is no wonder as the bottom 80% of Americans by income own only 8% of stocks. Exactly, yeah. So I've kind of thrown this one around too, that like the top 10% owns 80% of the stocks or something like that. That's 20%. Yeah, so that's basically the opposite of what he's saying here. Same thing he's saying here using the different stats. In short, we're looking at the wrong things to measure how we're doing as a country, and it's quite literally killing many of us. It's time that we expanded how we measure our economy to reflect how we're doing. We need to look at life expectancy and freedom from substance abuse, childhood success rates, and meaningful retirement rates as key indicators of our economy. And we need to implement policies that improve these metrics, not how rich a few stockholders get. Okay, yeah. And I've talked about that in my policies too, but I don't get as deep into that as he might be getting into here. For me, and I've talked about this on my stream before, that it's kind of implied here with economies for the common good because that's kind of how they operate. All right, let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's just go down to what we should be doing here. All right. Congress should adopt a series of measurements and goals that can be modified and re-examined over time. Okay, yep. And that's okay, so it goes into that below. Representatives should select from these measures based on what they believe their constituents would care about, and then suggest how the laws they're passing will improve them. Okay, yep. Would use measurements such as, but not limited to, poverty rates, life expectancy, rate of business formation, clean water, crime rates, overdose deaths, government efficiency, mental health, environment, military readiness. Again, there's that problem. There's a capitalism problem, right? Recidivism, marriage rates, quality of infrastructure, rehabilitation rates, education rates. Okay, a lot of this is good stuff, and I definitely agreed. I probably need to add a whole section on that, because there's been there are various ratings out there, like the happiness index, like the global happiness index, and some others like that we can look into using that do just what he's talking about here. And also looking at Kate Raworth's donut economics. That donut thing is also another way of looking at it. So yeah, he's exactly right here when he's talking about this. We need to start looking at how the people are doing, how the environment is doing. That needs to be the core of how we should judge how well the country's doing. Do I actually... I was thinking... Here we go. Yeah, so I talk about that here. So, okay, politicians should not be able to vote on their own pay or benefits. That should be left to the people. All politicians, no matter their position, should start with the base wage of $75,000, because those are my minimum wage. Politicians' pay shall be tied to inflation. Okay, but here, politicians' pay shall be tied to the health and well-being of their constituency. We can then adjust their pay up or down within the limits of minimum wage and maximum wage based on poverty, pollution, unemployment, violence, incarceration, school quality rates, equality, general happiness, and well-being, i.e. the economies for the common good rating for their constituency. The better their constituency is doing, then the better they can do too. So, right. Yeah, I do have that in here. I wasn't sure if I had added this, but this is exactly what we need to be doing. They get to vote on their own pay, and it's not tied to these sorts of measurements. But these are the sorts of measurements we should be looking at as a country. So, yeah, good stuff there, minus the U.S. military, because that's absolute garbage. Sometimes affordability, depending on what he means there, when he's talking about healthcare or whatever. Although he does support universal healthcare, so that probably doesn't fall in there. But, there you go. Yeah, so that's good. I definitely agree with that. All right. Term limits. Now, as we know, I'm not a fan of term limits. And I'll pull that out here. My post on this. Okay, so do you sometimes get the sense that Congress lags behind the rest of us, that they are playing catch up on issues like social media data collection, and basically any trend that has occurred in the last few decades? You're not alone. In one poll, 82% of voters agreed with the statement, members of Congress stay in office too long. The average age of representatives and senators is 57.6 and 62.9, respectively, with a significant proportion having served several decades. It's no wonder that by one measurement, 74% of registered voters support term limits for members of Congress, a number that has persisted for quite some time. In the 1990s, there was a drive to initiate term limits at the state level, but the Supreme Court ruled 5-4 in U.S. term limits versus Thornton that states could not impose term limits on their own members of Congress. Well, that's interesting. The House of Representatives passed a bill 227-204 to impose term limits of 12 years. 6 terms in the House in 12 years, 3 terms in the Senate. This fell short of the 2/3 they need to pass a constitutional amendment, and the effort stalled thereafter, though dozens of members of Congress continue to support similar bills on both sides. So again, so the benefits of establishing term limits are numerous. Lawmakers would be more motivated to pass successful policy. Incorrect, they would become less beholden to the way Washington and trying to climb the ladder with their own party. Okay, there would be a period of time they did not worry about fundraising or re-election and could do what they knew to be right without fear of concern. Again, these are really just naive. It would ensure a sense of rejuvenation as leaders with new ideas were regularly rotated into Washington without being there for literally decades. Okay, so here's the problem with this. And again, I tear this apart here. I wrote this when I write this 2 years ago. 2019, July 2019. And I ripped this entire concept apart. Term limits exacerbates the revolving door problem, right? People get in, they get their 2 or 3 corporate sponsored terms, and they get out for their big payday, right? So, and actually that last year accelerates senior slide, right? They will not do anything useful in the last term. And actually, as a matter of fact, just like he's saying here, let's take the quote. They do not worry about fundraising or re-election, so they will pass the most horrific types of laws that they can so that they can get their corporate payday when they get done. Like no politician with vision or expertise like Bernie Sanders. Plus term limits are undemocratic because they override the will of the people. And there have been a few studies on this from places that have done it, and it has harmed the process of, you know, going through of the government, of the way the government operates. And there's some stuff here talking about it. So, and what I say here, yeah, so you cannot fix corporate ownership of our government, our politicians, and our electoral process with term limits. You cannot fix gerrymandering, voter suppression, lack of view representation, or hacked voting machines with term limits. You cannot fix corporate bias in media, corporate ownership of the presidential debates, or the lack of representation and voting power of Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, or other U.S. territories with term limits. You cannot fix the pay-for-play schemes, politician to corporate lobbyist revolving door, insider trading, and their plethora of other unethical conducts with term limits. You cannot fix an ill-educated, disillusioned, impoverished, and disenfranchised electorate with term limits. So, again, term limits are at best a band-aid on a stab wound. At best, because it doesn't fix the actual problem of why people want term limits, because all this shit here is broken. This is why they want term limits. Instead of fixing all these things, they want to throw a band-aid, which will just make things worse. So yeah, term limits, completely against, bad idea. Now, the one place I would support this would be, and I think Bernie Sanders talked about this, is in the Supreme Court. They have lifetime appointments, but you can have a term limit of, like 18 years, which is what he's, I think, suggested. Then you rotate them out into the normal judicial branches or something like that. I think that would be a very good idea. Term limits for Supreme Court, I think, would be a good idea. Do I have that in here? I don't think I added that. Yeah, I do. Okay, Supreme Court. Limit Supreme Court justices to 18-year terms. There we go. All right, so there you go. There's that one. Ranked choice voting. Now, this is in my policies. I do support this. You often hear people say that voting for a third-party candidate is a waste of a vote, or they'll worry that the third-party candidate will be a spoiler, and these fears are absolutely valid in our current first-past-the-post voting. This means that people are often picking between two candidates they dislike in order to choose the lesser of two evils. I got my giant post on lesser of two evils voting. Ranked choice voting is simple. You rank the candidate in order of preference. You do not have to rank them all if you like two candidates. You can make just a first and a second choice, and just as in our current system, if a candidate gets over 50% of voters' first choice, then that candidate wins, which makes sense. Okay, so candidates aren't spoilers. Voters who align with third-party candidates can express their preferences without worrying. The winner needs to build a broad base of support with a diverse coalition. It provides a reason to avoid negative campaigning, and attacking a candidate might alienate a voter who would otherwise rank you second or third. Yes, voters. Okay, so yep, there's more down here. Oh yeah, so adopt ranked choice voting with open primaries. I have this in my policies too. Yes, this is exactly right. Definitely ranked choice voting and open primaries. Open primaries are next. Let's see. William Boss Tweed, who ran the Democratic Party machine in New York in the 19th century, famously declared, "I don't care who does the electing as long as I get to do the nominating." Sadly, this quote still applies to how our primary process runs today. Okay. Our current primary system has a number of drawbacks, since partisan gerrymandering has resulted in the vast majority of districts being safe, and only a small percentage of party voters show up for primaries. And I just had a statistic on this. This is actually pretty crazy when you get into it. Again, electoral reform is my first policy page that I wrote. It was 10 pages long. 2016, I think I wrote it. Let's look here. What was it? In 2016, barely 9% of the population selected Clinton and Trump in the primary elections. In August 2021, no, hold on. In 2020 general election, despite a record turnout, only 10% of eligible Americans nationwide cast ballots in the primary elections that effectively decided the winners in a supermajority of congressional seats. Greek politics. Pure base. How you doing, man? I don't know. I don't really know much about it. It's Greek to me. What's happening with them? Sorry for the bad joke. It's dying, man? Yeah. Well, politics everywhere is dying because, I mean, climate change, inequality, everything's on fire, flooding, torrential rains, climate refugees, already said that, hurricanes, earthquakes, everything's falling apart and going to hell in a handbasket. Just in some places, it's more obvious than others. Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad. The world needs to get together. Not that they ever will because, profit. But much like over here, right, our values, American scorecard, we need to have different values for those who are in office and to value humanity and value the environment and then start holding them accountable to that by having their pay tied to how well they're doing for the environment and for their constituency, and also on a national level as well. I mean, globally, it needs to be done in every single country like this, so that the politicians can be held accountable for actually making the world a better place for everyone, not just for their corporate donors. Again, getting money out of politics is another one of those things. Very few people actually choose the nominees, as I'm going over here. In August 2021, Congress has a 28% approval rating, but yet also has a 90% re-election rate. Why the fuck is that a thing? So again, the reason why term limits don't solve a problem is because they don't solve, they don't solve anything, especially stuff like this, right? That doesn't solve voter turnout. It doesn't solve fuckheads who are wrecking their states and their districts from getting reelected. It doesn't solve yeah. I read that part. You get it. Let's see. Okay, so this is about open primaries, partisan gerrymandering. Small number of voters show up. It results in increasingly extreme candidates making it to the general election. It disproportionately empowers partisan gatekeepers who largely decide the candidates that receive support and publicity, and it does a poor job of reflecting the true preferences of the voters in a district. We need to move to a system where primaries are open. Everyone who wants to run for a given office enters the same primary, and the top vote getters move on to the general election. Candidates can identify themselves with a party or not. California and Washington have already implemented 2 open primaries in which the top 2 finishers advance to the general election, regardless of party affiliation. In some districts, that means the top 2 candidates from the same party run against each other in the general. That is awesome. That is awesome. You could have, I mean, it can go both ways, right? You can have 2 Democrats running for the same position, which really puts the pressure on the candidates and the parties to not fucking suck. And if you combine this sort of a thing, open primaries, with ranked choice voting, pachow. This means that members of the party can vote between different visions, and members of other parties end up reflecting on which candidate from the other party they most closely align with. When the top 2 candidates are from different parties, a familiar general election dynamic plays out. Okay. More choices, more representative. Implement a final 5 open primary system in as many jurisdictions as possible. Allow all candidates to run together in the same primary, with all voters getting a voice in who will run in the general. Agreed. Tie this to get together ranked choice voting. Yep. And you've got open primaries, ranked choice voting, and then if you also throw this in with proportional representation, which I think Andrew Yang, I don't think he talks about it here, but I think he has mentioned it. You've got, a huge amount of the change that we need beyond getting money out of politics, right? Ranked choice voting, open primaries, proportional representation, and that is a huge amount of change. That would give us a radical amount of change, assuming we got money out of politics. That is, overturning Citizens United is a huge part of what needs to be done. Unfortunately, a lot of the changes that we need to do are basically constitutional amendments. Overturn Citizens United and the Electoral College, Voters' Bill of Rights, proportional representation, and we can even go so far as to go to a consensus-based democracy, which is a whole thing there. Okay, so that's good. Open primary. So I will keep open the ones I don't like. Independent redistricting commissions. Now, this is in my policies. Independent redistricting commissions. Over 80% of congressional districts are considered safe seats. They are either clearly Republican or clearly Democratic because of gerrymandering, leading to a re-election rate of over 90%. At the same time, the approval rate in Congress is an all-time low. Many of our representatives tend towards extremes. They are more worried about being challenged in the primaries than in the general election. Voters should choose the representatives rather than representatives choosing their voters through gerrymandering. Yep, exactly. Gerrymandered districts. Okay, blah, blah. Implement independent or nonpartisan redistricting commissions. Push for federal law making redistricting that attempts to crack or pack voters into districts in order to maximize one party's power in a state illegal. Okay, this is a good idea. I may have to add that to my policies. Yes, so definitely independent redistricting is a huge thing. Definitely. See, there's a lot of voting stuff here, which is good. It is actually just the first. Okay, so just these 4 are voting, which is important because fixing our electoral system is a huge part of how we solve some of our problems. It's very important. All right, next, data as a property right. Now, I do not have a policy on this. And I find this interesting. Data as a property right. Every day we each generate data that is being sold and resold by corporations. By some measures, this information is more valuable than oil. It allows ads to be targeted to us, provides market research to companies, and is increasingly being relied on for AI and other applications that we don't fully understand. You can't turn it off. Your phone is collecting data on you even when it's in your pocket. The data generated by people connected to you online is being used to draw conclusions about your preferences and activities. In some cases, that information is even being used to influence your opinion or feed you propaganda. Okay. Okay, so here we need a digital bill of rights that protect this information, including the right to be informed about what data is being collected, the right to opt out of data collection, the right to learn what information a company has on you, and the right to have it deleted, the right to prevent information you've willingly provided to one company from being sold or shared to others, the right to being informed of theft of your data in a timely manner, and the right to be compensated for that breach. Okay. Problems resolved. We should. Okay. Bill of work done. Europe. Privacy rights. Use of data. Create a data dividend. Okay. Here's the thing that, yeah, create a data dividend paid out by the companies that are monetizing this information. So he wants us to get paid for the companies using our data. I like that idea. Create a digital bill of rights that clearly define how companies are allowed to collect, use, and store information about us. Okay. That sounds cool. Now, if I've gone over this once. Solid. Here we go. Solid. If you haven't seen this, this is from Sir Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who basically created the World Wide Web. Now, when I think about like our data underneath or within a resource-based economy, this is kind of, hold on a second, my daughter. So how I think of kind of how our data might be shared or stored for an individual, this is kind of the model that I see. It's solid. Basically, if you think of all the data that you put into Facebook or Twitter or Google, all that data would first be stored centrally into one location where you have access to it. And then you can you can grant access to your data to specific organizations or people, and you can also set the rights for what they have for that data. If you want them to only have it for a day or a week or whatever, right? Or to deny them access to it. Now, obviously, the downfall of this concept is, of course, once they have access to it, they can copy it, and then it doesn't really matter. But that's why you need to put in a framework that kind of enforces those rules and those rights. So this would be kind of one way to help deal with that. And then, of course, you can tie the money paying into this whole process as well. Now, the one problem I've had with Solid is they don't have a database in here, because it's more about data storage and mass and not about, databases. But they need to get database in here for this really to take off. So if you haven't seen that, take a look at it. It's really interesting. So yeah, this is pretty cool. I can definitely support this sort of a thing. All right, the next one. Ban on lobbying. All right. Between 2009 and 2015, 42% of members of Congress retired from their positions to a cushy job as a lobbyist. Another 25% took a job at a company involved in lobbying. Almost half of registered lobbyists used to work on the Hill in Washington, D.C. Government jobs don't pay as well as high-level private sector jobs, which leads to a revolving door between government and industry. Yep, this is a huge problem. In order to immunize our legislators and regulators from this type of influence, we need to compensate them at higher levels, and then while preventing them from going into lobbying after leaving office. Paying legislators enough to free them from the influence and the need to take high-paying job afterwards would likely reduce corruption. Okay, so this was in his this was in his book, and I think this was in his presidential campaign. This is the one thing that I have a problem with. Just the way he deals with it. Now, obviously, stopping the revolving door is something we very much need to do, but honestly, we can't. It's never going to happen as long as money exists, as long as there's profit to be made. Ban all legislators and anyone who works at a regulatory agency from working for a lobbyist firm for a period of time after leave office position. Okay, that's fair. Increase salaries to these individuals to make up this limitation. provide these individuals with stipends for a period of time after they leave their positions to work in the public sector. So this doesn't here. This isn't actually going to solve the problem. So banning them, sure, from going to work for a lobbying firm, sure. But guess what? They can work for a consulting firm, which works for the lobbying firm, I mean, and still make the big bucks. This isn't actually going to solve the problem. It's not going to solve the problem. I understand what he's trying to do here, but ultimately, once they get to the private sector, they may not work for a lobbying firm directly, but they will work for one indirectly. You can't stop that. This is such a difficult thing to deal with. And honestly, when I've thought about this, possibly the only way to actually deal with this is, and this is never going to happen, mind you, is ultimately, to an extent, we need to get money out of the reach of anyone who runs for office. So the only way to really deal with this is to create almost a caste of public workers, so that if you're going to work in government, you renounce, much like the Night's Watch in Game of Thrones, right? You renounce family, business, profit, titles, everything, and then you become a member of the public caste, the public workers caste, and then the government provides you with everything, much like being in the military. So you can never ever take a job outside of public service. Now, obviously, that still doesn't get rid of everything, because you still have friends and family outside to which you may want to help, but it should radically reduce this problem. And that's probably the only way we could actually deal with this in a way that might actually have an effect. Oh, of course, this will never happen. But as long as money is there and they can make money afterwards, it's very difficult to stop this problem. Very difficult to stop the lobbying problem. Sure, you can ban it and put up these restrictions. Sure, these two, this is fine. Yeah, this is fine, but this isn't. These two aren't going to solve the problem. So I'll close this just because it's yeah, I agree with it in principle, but the way he does it, Okay, so next, Citizens Portal. Now this I also have not added to my policies quite this well. Actually, I have. Let's go back over here. I don't put it quite that way. It's economic. Economic? Yeah, I think it's here in economic. I know I have this in here. Digitize digital government infrastructure. Yeah, so here we go. So yeah, digitalize the national infrastructure similar to Estonia, so that this includes the portal. Maybe I need to update the language on this a little bit. All right, Citizens Portal. The American people have lost faith in our government, that our government can get things done. We need to fix that. And it's one of the most innovative and entrepreneurial countries that has ever existed. There's no reason we can't get there. Yes, we can. It's called money. During the pandemic, economically disadvantaged citizens and those who do not own a home experienced disproportionate delays in receiving funds. Our representatives succeeded in passing legislation, and still our antiquated system stood between the people who need help and the help they were promised. Great things are possible, but we need to forward thinking to unlock bureaucracy. Yeah, this is exactly right. And on his interview with Sam Harris, he was specifically talking about the issue of the IRS being the one who gives out this money directly, because not everyone files taxes. So people who don't file taxes might not have access to some of the money that's being given out, or it might be much more difficult for them to get access to it. Now, he didn't say what the alternative was, what organization should be doing it, or should there be a brand new, organization that's created just to, give out, to disperse money from the government so that it would include people who who aren't filing taxes and that sort of thing. But that's an interesting issue that I had not heard of yet. We're used to banking, ordering food, and arranging transportation online. Many track their health and communication primarily via their phone. We need to modernize the way our government communicates and delivers services to our populations to match this convenience. Yeah, true statement. Agreed. An online citizens portal would allow Americans to access and apply for benefits, see tax info, renew licenses, fill out a census, register to vote, and get important updates on what's going on in Congress. The online portal and app would enable people anywhere in the country to have immediate access to all the services. Yeah, I agree. And this is actually when I in this area here, this is exactly what I'm envisioning here. He's describing what I'm envisioning here. When you read these sorts of things like Estonia's, the most technologically advanced government, because they've completely digitized their government. That's the way that works. Their people have a website and an app that they can go to, and they can do all of their government interacting there. And that's what we need to be doing. Exactly correct. Problems to be solved. We should consolidate federal systems and data sets and work with states to allow for their data systems to work with federal ones. I agree completely. Create an online citizen portal available to everyone living in this country where information and services can be provided. Yeah, I agree. This is exactly correct. And honestly, why hasn't this been done? Well, because this lack of communication is what allows the corporations and the 1% to keep ensuring inequality exists, and it makes it harder. Well, it makes it harder for people to have a better life, and therefore able to stand up to the corporations, the 1%. So yes, this definitely needs to be done. This is exactly correct. Department of Technology. This was in his presidential campaign too, I believe. The rapid pace with which technology is currently developing is the single greatest force affecting American families. Automated systems and robots are replacing millions of jobs. Smartphones and tablets are stealing children's attention while causing mental health issues. We're only beginning to understand the threats posed by AI were a decade ago the thing of science fiction. Now they're a top concern of our intelligence agencies. Cyber war is at least as much of a concern these days as traditional warfare. At the time, our government falls seemingly farther behind in understanding this every day. We have senior members of Congress asking how Facebook makes money. Yep, they hardly understand what cryptocurrency is. How to expect them to legislate these issues when they have aides print their emails out so they can read them in hard copy. Oh, right. And again, this is not something that term limits will ultimately. Term limits don't solve this. An educated populace and an actual representative democracy, getting money out of politics, solving the corporate media problem, and there's a lot of that stuff in my electoral policies to try and fix this issue. Again, if someone like Bernie Sanders is going to be there year after year because he's fucking awesome, why would we get rid of him? Term limits, at least for the most part, for elected positions are undemocratic. And if we have an actual democracy where there's actual representation, money out of politics, media is not biased, and people are educated and actually able to make a real choice, then this won't be a problem. But yes, today this most definitely is one, and of course the corporations write the bills and own our government. We need to bring technological expertise back to the government. Congress needs to bring back the Office of Technology Assessment, and the executive branch needs a department that's focused on ensuring those regulating technology understand it. This will require attracting top talent from the private sector, but it's a necessity with the current threats we're facing from technological development. America is a country of innovators. We should be celebrating these technological innovations. Okay, blah, blah. Okay, blah, blah, blah. We should promote Christian department technology, push calendars, okay. Increase salaries for individuals working in these departments to compete with lucrative offers from the private sector. Okay, so again, with my policies, you have a minimum wage, a high minimum wage, and a low maximum wage, and that'll help solve this problem. Because we desperately need a maximum wage. So this is interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Sounds like a good idea. But until we get money out of politics and the corporate ownership of the government, this might end up just being what, like we read last time, right? The Washington Post was talking about, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, Amazon, saying that Facebook and Amazon should have a seat on the UN Council. Are you fucking kidding me? Ugh. All right, automatic tax filing. I do have this in my policies as well. You'd be surprised how many of my policies Andrew Yang also has. Automatic tax filing. Very little fills Americans with as much dread as tax season, which is a bit ridiculous, as 75% of Americans receive funds. If the American people are dreading a process that ends in them getting a check from the government, you know something is wrong with the process. Americans spend 31 billion and 1.7 billion hours every year figuring out how to pay their taxes, and at the end of all of this, over 400 billion in revenue is lost because of mistakes and intentional tax evasion. Yeah, and I take a week of vacation from my job to do taxes. I mean, the year before, it was 2 weeks because of our other business. I think 2 years in a row, it was 2 weeks. But normally, it's just 1 week. It's 1 week of vacation that I have to take working on taxes for literally 8 hours a day for a week to get it done. Now, we have forced, previously, just 1 week of vacation was 3 businesses and our personal. We have a rental property. You shouldn't have to take a week of I know, right? How you doing? Haven't seen you in a long time. Yeah, I shouldn't have to do. I shouldn't. I mean, oh my God, it's so ridiculous because we have 3 small businesses. Our yoga studio is the big one, and then we have a rental property. Not that that's a big deal, but there's just a lot of things I have to gather to get my taxes done, and it's such a pain in the ass. Now, like he was talking earlier with the citizen portal and combine that with automatic tax filing, and that's the way this should be. And again, this is all part of my policies as well. I shouldn't exactly have to waste a week of my time doing taxes. Well, the hardest part is the receipts, getting all the receipts together, and I have to take my bank statements, put them in a spreadsheet, validate them with the receipts, and do that. It's a huge pain in the ass. All right. And there are many other countries that automatically calculate taxes for individuals, sending refund or balance requests with enough information that people can check government's math for themselves. Unlike America, they don't have big tax software and accounting firms lobbying them to make the process unnecessarily complicated. Right. So this I agree with completely. Now, for me, I take this as accountants should be public servants. All lawyers should be public servants as well, so that the people have access to both. And once we privatize, when we make accountants public servants, a bunch of them go to the IRS to go and work on corporate taxes and taxes for the 1%. And then we have our citizen portal, and then all your taxes get filed, all the data for your taxes gets aggregated directly to the government, and then we don't have to worry about it. Here's a system where a business has an online calculator. You tell them what's on your accounts as a business, operating income, dividends, revenue, and they tell you what taxes are based on what you tell them. You click the link. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, and part of why that's difficult here is because there are so many tax deductions and so many things that you have to put in. It's super. There's just a lot of deductions, a lot of cat bothering me. A lot of things, but you're right. That's the way it should be. It should be just put in the information that you need if they haven't already aggregated it. Because again, the government the banks could be sending that automatically to them. Like you could link your bank account to the federal government, and then at the end of the year, they just read it, and then look, they're done. So this is good. This is a very, very good idea. Support it completely. If only we had a sane government The only form you have to file is your business accounts. That's it, and you have that already for business reasons. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's the way it should be. It should be that easy. There's no reason. I mean, it's overly difficult here so that the 1% in the corporations can, you know, make lots of profit while us peasants waste our days away. It's just another way. It's the price of it's the non-affluence. Andrew Yang 2019 flashback. How you doing, man? Welcome. Yeah, we're going through his party platform here, and we talked about it earlier. It's a lot of what he has here is already in my policies. I don't agree with everything. Like the term limits, I definitely am against. I don't have data as a property right in there, but pretty much most of this I completely agree with. Data Department of Technology, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Seems like a good idea, but I'm not sure. Now, democracy dollars. We read about this yesterday. I read an article on this, and it seems pretty interesting. If you go to my Reddit or to my Discord, the article is there that we read on it. It was on Seattle that specifically was doing it. They fund it every year through property taxes, and they seem to have done a good job of actually reducing the amount of money in politics there. All right, democracy dollars. Legislation and policy don't reflect the will of the people because our voices have been flooded out by wealthy donors, corporate lobbyists, and special interest groups flooding the system with their money. Fewer than 10% of Americans contribute to federal candidates, and most of them are very small donors. The percentage who give more than $200 is about 1%. Oh, wow. And those who give $2,700 are about 0.1%. Thus, the rich have the outsized influence, and they have very different priorities than the rest of us. Generally, the wealthy are more conservative and respect current authority and encourage a less radical, rapid approach to change. The best plan is to issue 100 democracy dollars to every registered voter that they could give to any candidate they can vote for in a given year. They are use it or lose it. If you don't use them, they simply expire. Gang mine, how you doing, man? Welcome. Thanks for looking. Appreciate it. Hope you're doing okay. Yeah, we're going over Andrew Yang's forward party policies. The weird thing with Yang is that he's technically a part of the business class. Right. And I covered that in the beginning here. That's something that I've been critical of him. He is a capitalist, and you're right. He's a tech CEO Democrat. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And look, one of the interviews he was on, like MSNBC, he's basically said without saying is that his party would accept, corporate money, PAC money, and that sort of a thing. Again, he's like you're saying, he's a tech CEO Democrat. That's exactly right. Now, he has a lot of great policies here, but we also have to keep that in mind that he is a capitalist, and that's how he approaches things here. Much like we looked at the issue here, stop the revolving door when we read this. Now, obviously, creating the law against preventing the revolving door at a core would be good, but his other ways of trying to stop it is very capitalist oriented. Like I said, as long as money's here, revolving door is never going to go away. So yeah, exactly. FML Banda 123, exactly. Let me actually go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and bring this article up for you so you guys can see it from yesterday, so you can read more on it. Where is it? The democracy dollar problem. Here it is. Hold on. In saying that being a capitalist isn't always a bad thing, it's a reason to be sure. Yeah, anyone who claims themselves to be a capitalist or capitalist to their bones is definitely not a friend of ours. But sure. Okay, let me bring this up. Yes. Democracy dollars. This is from Tuesday. Democracy. Here we go. I'll throw this article in here so you guys take a look at it if you want. Decent article on it. There are presently 250 million voting age adults in the United States. If only 20% of eligible voters allocated their $100 to given candidates in an election cycle, that would be $5 billion, enough to counterbalance all the money that is currently being sourced by companies and special interests. If a congressional candidate got 10,000 people excited, he or she would get $1 million, enough to be competitive. I mean, in a status sense, not ideologically. Yeah, fair. A business owner who is by definition a capitalist because they own capital means they create capital. Yeah, that's fair. Yep. I know what you mean. I'm with you, dog. I'm with you. See, a number of communities have adopted measures that either match small dollar donations or simply grant voters money. For example, New York City matches small donations 8-1 for those candidates who agree to contribution and spending limits. Maine has a robust system of public funding state candidates who gather $5 donations and then issue further private funding. In Seattle in 2016 approved 4 $25 democracy vouchers that voters could use on local candidates who buy by spending limits. All right. Provide vouchers based on total spending in previous elections to all eligible voters so that they can support candidates they believe in, put money in the hands of people. Okay, well, this is, again, we went over this Saturday, and I like the idea. This would be one way to publicly fund elections. Take the party indicators off the ballot, vote for people. Yeah, it's actually, I had another idea on that. I mean, I'm a tech CPO. I'm the working class lapdog in a business, but still part of the business class in the sense that part of the board that owns capital. Yeah, no, I get you. I know what you mean, man. I know what you mean. So, yeah, not just take off the party indicators. What I've actually considered for electoral reform is you don't vote for people at all. You vote for issues. And the candidates that have that are the most representative of the people and the issues they care about, those are the ones who get elected. And then if there ends up being some sort of a tie, then you could have like an actual election, like ranked choice voting based off that sort of thing. But you're right, JS. Oh my God, your name. Jishmishes. You're right. Taking off the party indicators might help a little bit, but ultimately, the problem with that is most people, at least today, don't know how to. They don't know who to vote for. They're not educated enough to know the person they want to vote for. Like before I started in politics, 2005, 6, somewhere around there, I voted for Obama just, because I didn't know anything. I was a normie who didn't know anything, so I voted Democrat by default. And that's what, believe it or not, that's what a lot of Americans do because they don't have a fucking clue. And part of that's the systemic structural violence inherent to the system. Now, albeit if you did remove it, that would, at least to a little bit force them to do a little bit of investigation, but that's what we call in political sciences a pink slip democracy. Candidates put their policies into a computerized system. People vote on policies. The person who fits the majority opinion in a district is assigned. Oh, that's a thing? Well, you're fancy. I guess I'm gonna have to look that up. Because that's, thanks for posting that, dude. That's gonna be, I'm gonna definitely have to look that up because that's pretty interesting. Because then, like right now, we vote people and we vote personalities. We don't vote. That's what your class called it anyway. Okay. Let me copy this down. We have to really start voting issues. In my post on why you need to vote every single election, that's what I talk about. You need to vote issues and not people. You need to follow the money and look at the votes and that sort of a thing. And it's take the party indicators off. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet, but it's an interesting idea. So democracy dollars, very interesting idea. I like it. American exchange program. Any other questions, comments, suggestions on the the electoral aspect? Form of interactive democracy. Okay, I'm gonna copy that down too. All right, thanks for that. I will take a look at that, because that's like when you go to like I Side With, or what's the other website? I Side With. I think it's like I Side With. You take the quiz and find out who are the people who best represent you. I'm an econ major and a politics minor. Gotta love those numbers. There's a lot of numbers there. Yep. Yeah. So like I Side With, right? You take the test and you find out which people best represent you. Now I do have some issues with that website, GraphCoPer. Exactly. So you take the test and then you find out who best represents you. That's how I found out about the Green Party. When I just started out, I had no idea the Green Party existed because of obviously how fucked our system is. But I found out about them through this test, and that's could be a way that we vote. Much like he's calling this a pink slip democracy, because if we vote through issues and not people, we're hopefully more likely to get better politicians. Now, obviously, there has to be a check on that sort of a concept where, they say one thing and then they do another, right? So there has to be a check in the system between, what they say during election time and actually how they vote. So, their rating on whatever their policies are has to be moderated and checked versus their policies versus their actual votes. Speaking of which, the Scottish Green Party just had their annual conference, and I was at, oh, were you? Cool, good for you. I was at the 2013 one, and after that I was on the national committee for a while, but I got a little bit disgusted at the lack of progress and the lack of, I was full of all spit and vinegar when I joined. I wanted real change real fast, and it wasn't happening fast enough for me. So grr. I love watching how fast candidates at primary are. Yeah. It just like, especially Democrats, right? They're all universal health care. Then once they're in, they're like, yeah, no, not really. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So fucked in the brain. American exchange program. It's no longer feeling like we all mean the same thing when we talk about Americans. Partisan divides are growing stronger, and over 40% of the members of each party view the other as the enemy and downright evil. Those living in rural and urban areas are living increasingly divergent lives, and social media, meant to bring us together, instead is keeping us in our own bubble, presenting us with only with views which line up with what we already believe. Yep. Yeah, the Greens here voted for some really good. Oh, good to hear. I'm glad that they're winning seats somewhere. They're not doing it here, at least on that federal level. Good to hear. We can't solve our problems if we don't work together. It's imperative that we stop this trend. We need to find ways to invigorate public spaces that allow for people from all walks of life to come together. Brother Greens are in the government here. Okay, nice. Yeah, we don't have any in the federal government. I can't imagine. We might have a few in major posts in state government, but not a whole lot, unfortunately. I mean, obviously we have the majoritarian democracy, and the Republicans and Democrats control everything. Hell, last election, Democrats fought to keep Greens off the ballot in like 3 or 4 states. I mean, was it fucked up. One important way to do so is to initiate the American Exchange Program, bring high school seniors from around the country together to work on projects in different areas. This will expose them to individuals from different backgrounds and viewpoints, allowing them to make friends with whom they disagree. They'll also gain exposure to areas of the country they wouldn't otherwise visit. We all know that there are plenty of projects that would be both educational and important to local communities. Okay, this is interesting. By teaching our children to come together with different people that are different from them to solve problems, we can raise a generation that's focused on solutions instead of viewing other Americans as the enemy. Okay, so a key part of this would be getting rich kids into poorer areas and, poorer kids into richer areas. Something like that, because you need that. You need to do the diversity, but not just this. I mean, this is something good to do, like perhaps every year for like different districts and different schools. It's expensive with travel, but also it should be done like a foreign exchange program, bringing more kids here and sending more kids to other countries, because travel is such an important part of increasing compassion and decreasing fear of the world. You send our children overseas to, be hosted by families, and it broadens their horizons. It's such an important thing. I think I have something about that in my educational policies. What do I have about this in my educational policies? I don't know if I have this in here. I don't think I do. I think maybe it's in my... I may have to look at adding something like similar to that to my policies. It's not a bad idea. It's increasing the diversity that the individual students have access to, which increases their connection to humanity. Okay, I don't have something in here on this. The most policy is what we call the Financial Health Service, which is basically nationalized state-owned bank. Okay, that's awesome. Provides everyone, including refugees and homeless, with a bank account in which universal basic income is paid into. Oh, awesome. And everyone gets one on their 11th birthday and can be used as a tool to teach the young about money tax. Oh, okay, awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, that's part of my policies too. Municipalized banking and UBI of sorts is also, and I use progressive basic income as a part of my policies. But yeah, that's cool. Very cool. It's what we need to be doing if we were sane. So yeah, this is interesting. It shouldn't be done just domestically, but it should also be done internationally as well. Okay, good idea. All right, almost done. Civic juries. Okay, so this is... So in theory, as representatives of the people, members of Congress should pay attention to what their constituents think, but as we've seen, the majority of the country can be for something, UBI or term limits, and legislators ignore the will of the people. Instead of capturing the will of the people using flawed polling systems that are often ignored anyway, Harvard law professor Lawrence Lessig advocates for a more robust system of civic juries utilizing deliberative polling, a system first developed by Stanford professor James Fishkin. Okay, what does this involve? It's simple. Get a group of voters, a civic jury, together to weigh various policy options with experts presenting various viewpoints. The group would report its viewpoints both at the beginning and at the end of the deliberation process, and the shifts in their thinking would be taken as the direction for policymakers. Okay. Countries such as Iceland, Mongolia, and Ireland have used these civic juries to suggest constitutional amendments. Reporting around the findings of these juries tends to lead to a broader understanding of important issues. Okay, because you're spending time educating people. Okay, that's good. The media and politicians pay attention to the outcomes, and legislation results that better reflects the will of the people. Okay. These civic juries can also be made to better reflect the population. Congress, after all, does not much look like a representative set of Americans or any host of dimensions: age, gender, wealth, education. The natural authority of this group could steer legislation and national conversation in important directions. Now, it could, as long as we solve the money and politics problem. Obviously, just like, in, again, electoral politics, Congress doesn't do what the polls say, and this is just another set of polling. So they, by and large, can ignore it, but the result of educating the populace on this would be, I think, of significant value. Scottish Greens voted for nationalized standard for internet routers and nationalized high-speed internet with the provision that means that when you swap internet services providers, you are temporarily put on the government fiber optic service until the swap is complete. Okay, that's cool. If you are poor, you can default use the government provided one forever and paid through. Oh, okay, that's awesome. So that is awesome. Yeah, for me, internet should be a public utility. It should, yeah, much like you guys are doing there, it's a human right. Everyone should have access to it. So what is nationalized standard for internet routers? Do you guys set a technical specification for routers? Or is it more security? That's cool. That's very cool. That's very good, Panda. I like that a lot. Greens rule. Okay, so this is an interesting concept. I don't believe it'll have the effect that he's kind of hoping, because Congress already ignores us, so what's one more poll to ignore? Although, again, the educating people on the topics and getting them to think about it, that is of significant use, I think. All right, last one, accessible and secure voting. He really needs to fucking organize this, because he's got a whole bunch in electoral politics, some in infrastructure. Come on, dude. Organization. Yeah, it's technical specification. All ISPs use the same router. Oh, the government provides them. The only thing ISPs can do is provide higher speeds than the government typically, but the router is, why would you do that? I mean, obviously there's a richer, larger ISPs could get better routers with better throughput. So I could see that from an inequality standpoint, but so what was the thinking on that? And who makes the router? Is it just whichever company wants to make them can make them because they follow the same specification? That's fascinating. Fascinating. Early voting, vote by mail. Yep, I think I have these in my policies as well. This is super important as well. Come on, dude, organize it. Reduce the throwing away of routers. Routers are plastic, and it also creates a means of taking. Oh, okay. Okay, so you're reducing planned obsolescence, sort of a thing. Okay, interesting. Now, don't you find that I suppose router technology doesn't advance that much, but at some point you definitely have to update it at least every few years, because I mean, router technology does change. But okay, I can see that. Huh, interesting. Very interesting. Many Americans are taking time off from work to vote, only to experience absurd lines, understaffed polling stations, and hassles with voter ID requirements. Mail-in ballots and early voting not only help the working class American, but also those who are unable to make it to a polling station, including but not limited to the physically ill, disabled, or those working polling stations. Yeah, so what I say is that early voting, vote by mail, yes, but also that the voting day should be a federal holiday. And I currently think I have it on a Monday, like a Friday or a Monday, one of the two. And then the entire weekend is a voting weekend. So you have that whole weekend to in person go vote. But you also have early voting, vote by mail, online, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and there are provisions in there for updating the routers. Also, the Greens have implemented a circular economy. All plastic into roads. I don't like that. Putting plastic into roads. I know people have done that, but my issue with that is that eventually the plastic is going to run off. Chemicals from the plastics are going to run off into the water and the ground supply and the ground and create a problem with that. It's an interesting from a recycling standpoint, but I would really have to see the studies on that sort of a thing. I would rather see the circular economy is awesome, but putting it into roads, I'm not really overly keen on that. I know some countries and cities have done that, but not keen on it. But interesting. It's good that you guys are doing all that stuff. That's awesome. You guys are really doing stuff that matters. God, I want to move. I really want to move. 2/3 of states now offer some form of early voting, giving Americans the ability to cast their ballots at less crowded polling stations with reduced wait times. I usually do that too. 30 states have enacted no excuse absentee voting. I think ours has it, which allows citizens to submit their votes by mail at designated polling locations. Yep. Yeah, this is definitely something that needs to be done. Definitely. All right. So there we go. We've gone through it all. He's got some interesting ideas, and a lot of this I already have in my policies. American scorecard, very, very good. Term limits, I'm against. Ranked choice voting, yes. Open primaries, yes. Independent redistricting, yes. Then the other voting down here is democracy dollars. I like the concept. Accessible and secure voting, yes. That is a property right. I like this. Stop the revolving door to DC. He has some significant issues. It's hard to stop, but I support this. Basically, citizen portal. It's in my policies. Power and technology. I like the concept. Overall, automatic tax filing, yes. Basically have that in my policies. American exchange program. This is pretty interesting too, but we need to expand it to be globally. All right. Okay, well, we got through the forward party, their policies, and my thoughts on them. Any last questions, comments, or suggestions on the forward party and Andrew Yang and what he's doing here? Overall, it's some pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. This is just non-recyclable plastics. Recycled plastics will be used for the routers. Non-recyclable plastics are shredded and compressed into plastic sheet for roads, and resin is used to fill in the gaps from the plastics with runoffs either side of the road that take the microplastics out of the water and put the rainwater back. Okay, so yeah, okay, so that is good. It's not just the microplastics, it's the chemical runoff that I worry about. Microplastics, very good. I hadn't even considered that aspect of it, but that is a big thing to worry about. Well, microplastics will still get out into the environment. It's going to be kicked up by, like chains on tires or whatever. There'll be physical things happening that will eventually put microplastics into the environment. That is problematic, of course. But it's the chemical runoff I worry about the worst. Both the microplastics and the chemical runoff is a huge concern. It's not gonna, because cars go fast and they take a lot of damage and a lot of beating. That I'm very concerned about that aspect. Yeah, plastic in chemical runoff is filtered out the water by the sewage plants. Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. Still concerned, but interesting. It's good that you guys have thought of those things, because microplastic is important. Chemicals is important too. Interesting. It's awesome that you guys are doing stuff like this, because some countries need to do it, because ours sure as fuck isn't doing it. Because we be dumb. Try and go larger. Okay, I can. Good. All right. All right. So there we go. That's the forward party. Oh, nope. Now, I just recently added something to my policy, specifically kind of targeting this, at least from the standpoint of the street lamps. Now, let's see what they're going to do. The first major city in the United States passes a dark sky ordinance. I think I need to add more of this into my policies. Like here, like in my policies, I say street lamps should have reflectors on them, and have a shade on them and reflector, so they can reflect all the light down and not into the sky. And also have them have sensors on them. Most of the Greens are environmental engineers. They understand this stuff. One of my friends who's a ranking member is a marine geologist, and she doesn't like plastic roads, but the upcycling plan the Greens have is good enough. It has its issues, but the risks are low. Okay, all right. Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, I'm not overly keen on it too, but your recycling plan and stuff like that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, definitely has its issues. But with what you're taking, the precautions you're taking, it sounds pretty cool. I would rather just, take that recyclable plastic and use it for like 3D printing or something like that, instead of using it for the roads. Use it for other things than just the roads. Use it for something other than the roads. There's got to be some, there's plenty of things that we use plastic for that could be used for. But all right, good to know. Good to know, marine geologist. Okay, cool. Thanks for telling me all this, man. I have no idea. Had no idea that was going on. That's cool that you guys are doing all that. Interesting. All right. Stars can't fight city lights. They've turned their backs on us. 100 years ago, just about anyone could walk outside in their yard at night, look up, and easily see the Milky Way. But now we all take for granted that you can't see any but the very brightest features of the night sky from urban and even suburban areas, because there's simply no getting around the light pollution. It's just the cost of doing business. And this is something I talked to my daughter about as well, letting her know about light pollution is a thing. But that thinking is beginning to change. In September 2021, my beloved Pittsburgh became the first major city to rethink how urban lighting will be conducted, passing a dark sky ordinance not only for visibility of the night sky, but also to use less energy, to help plants and animals by maintaining a crisper day-night cycle, to reduce glare for better night vision, and to benefit those in poor neighborhoods who are disproportionately negatively affected by wasteful overlighting. So proud of you, Pittsburgh. I hope your action will lead the way for cities across the United States. Yes, this is a good idea. Lest you think this is idle talk, the city is getting started on this now. The city is reviewing bids to choose a vendor by the end of the year to replace all of its 35,000 streetlights, as well as 8,000 new ones in the recommended color temperature around the city, according to the mayor's office. Yep, I do also talk about the color temperature so that it reduces the impact on the environment, on the wildlife, especially bugs. The ordinance will also affect all newly installed lighting at city-owned buildings, parks, and other properties requiring dark sky principles to be observed. Happily, other institutions around the city are already getting into the spirit and joining the effort. The Pittsburgh Zoo and PPG Aquarium, Phillips Conservatory and Botanical Gardens, and the National Aviary have already announced that they will adopt the ordinance on their properties. Yes, you read that right. The National Aviary is indeed located in Pittsburgh. Hatching of a rare Andean condor in 2019 at the National Aviary as part of an effort to help the species survive. We also voted for a 20-minute neighborhood so that everything you need will be within 20 minutes. 20-minute walk from home so that you're driving less, walking, and producing. Yeah, walkable neighborhoods is a good thing. I know that's something that's kind of Sweden and some of the, or Finland, I think it's Finland. Some of those Nordic countries are really big on getting rid of streets and getting rid of cars from, you know, the main areas, and then turning that into green space and making sure people can walk to places. Yeah, that's a very, very good thing. Very good idea. And honestly, when you look at my policies, the biggest problem we have for stuff like that is that our cities aren't designed for that. They're designed for cars. They're designed from the ground up. Well, they're not designed from the ground up. Our cities typically evolve organically, and they're not designed from the ground up for sustainability and walkability and that sort of a thing. So it's hard to, you know, it's hard to do the sort of things like that you're trying to do. It's awesome. It's awesome that you're doing it, and that, you know, some countries and cities are trying to do that, but it's difficult to do because of how messed up how our urban infrastructure lacks sustainable and walkable design by its very nature. Cool, dude. Super cool. But why Pittsburgh? Why now? It's largely arose out of the efforts of astronomer Diane Turnchek and architect urban designer Stephen Quick, both special lecturers at Carnegie Mellon University. In an interview with NPR's Morning Edition a couple weeks ago, Turnchek explained, "When I grew up in New England, you could just walk outside and look up and see the Milky Way. But when I arrived in Pittsburgh, the sky had started to decline in quality. 40 years later, I have to explain what the Milky Way is and describe what it looks like. You know, show pictures. And my students think those pictures are fake." In August, the astronauts on the International Space Station took some pictures of Pittsburgh for being on a clear night, and that's the before shot. The astronauts are going to continue taking pictures of Pittsburgh, so we will have during pictures and after pictures. That's awesome. Here is the before picture, which looks a lot better in full size. It's like a spider. It's almost like a neuron. Synapses popping out. Look. Does it look like a neuron? Yeah, you can see it's organically evolved, not designed from the center, from the beginning out. And here's Carnegie Mellon itself at night. Lights every fucking where. Green lights. Oh, stadium too. Bright lights. CMU goes on to explain. Dark sky lighting uses technology like motion sensors, dimmers, and timers, which I talk about in my policies, cooler temperature bulbs, and shielding, which makes sure light is directed down instead of up to reduce light pollution while providing enough lighting for safety and comfort. The city plans to retrofit existing streetlights to dark sky compliant LED lights. Pittsburgh's current 4300 LED streetlights glow at 5,000 kelvins and give off a bright blue-white glare. The new LED lights would be a lower temperature and look much softer and warmer, as recommended by the International Dark Sky Association. So I guess I want to add this link to my policies here so that we can have access to it. The notion of light temperature has to do with black body radiation. Let's say we have an opaque metal sphere that doesn't reflect any light, black body, and we heat it so hot that it glows. The higher temperature it reaches, the shorter, bluer, more energetic wavelengths of visible light it will emit. Yeah, right. So when you look at a flame, right, the hottest flame is a blue flame, and the coolest flame is the reddish and the orangish flame. Yep. Stars behave much like black bodies, so we can use the color of a star to get an idea of its temperature. Okay, yep. Colors above are way exaggerated for clarity. In reality, this range of star colors actually looks more like this. Cool. Hydrogen fusing main sequence stars of different types. Stars emit all wavelengths of visible light, so they look more or less whitish, but the tinge of their color depends on what visible wavelengths they're emitting more of. 90% of stars are simply fusing hydrogen into helium. This makes them main sequence stars. The bigger the main sequence star, the hotter it's going to burn. A large star feels a stronger crushing force of gravity within it. That pushes more hydrogen to fuse, generating more outward pressure to keep the star from collapsing, but also generating more heat. So the bigger main sequence stars are hotter and thus appear bluer. Use the same color scales to describe the radiation profile emitted by light fixtures. No, that doesn't mean your yellowish bathroom light has the same surface temperature as the sun. It's just that its emission spectrum makes it look about equivalent to a black body radiator at that temperature. You can see below the range of LED light colors of various light temperatures is not unlike that of stars. They too are emitting all wavelengths of visible light and can be slanted towards red or blue. So we want to cool down the light temperature, Turncheck explains. What we're trying to do is cut out the light in the blue end of the spectrum because blue light scatters more easily than red light in the atmosphere, right? That's why the sky is blue, so blue light scatters everywhere. It doesn't stay where you're lighting. Right, because that's because of all the water in the environment, right? Water in the atmosphere, which like against the hydrogen that causes the blue light to scatter. A bit more on the benefits of efficient and cool urban lighting from Pittsburgh Magazine. Humans are dependent on natural internal cycles such as circadian rhythm and the production of melatonin, which are regulated by the natural external cycles of the environment. Speaking of light and air pollution, we also voted for policy that will ban the sale of fireworks to individual consumers most of the year, instead of allowing it at specific times of the year, giving preference for low-volume fireworks. Okay, that's cool. And I've thought of actually outlawing them because of the harm it has on the environment in general, but also the damage to insects and birds and, you know, PSD laden veterans and other people who are trauma laden. It's an archaic practice that we really need to evolve beyond just because of the environmental damage and psychological damage it causes on people. Cool. It's good that you're starting on limiting that. You guys are doing a great job. Seriously, guys. It's awesome to hear. But the truth of our bright world is that most people in the US no longer experience generally dark nights. When exposed to artificial light, especially blue light, and especially at night, these cycles are disrupted, according to research posted on the International Dark Sky Association's website. Further, IDA estimates 3.3 billion in outdoor light is wasted per year and also releases 21 million tons of carbon dioxide. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yes, it wastes a lot of electricity, but of course, a lot of our electricity does come from fossil fuels, and therefore, yeah, to offset the environmental effect of all that carbon dioxide, 875 million trees would need to be planted annually. In a heat map produced in conjunction with the New World Atlas of Artificial Sky Brightness, Pittsburgh is identified as a light pollution hotspot. Well, aren't we all? Oh, that is cool. Fucking data, dude. Love data. Yeah, so this is nice. I'm definitely adding this to my policy, the link to this, because this is cool. I should point out that Pittsburgh isn't merely humoring itself. The International Dark Sky Association is pleased with the city's efforts and is fully on board. Pittsburgh is the first city to take principles-based approach to legislation, clearly aligning with IDA's value-centered approach to lighting, said Ruskin Hartley, executive director of the International Dark Sky Association. The now passed ordinance provides policy that is easy to understand, implement, and enforce. We foresee this approach serving as a model for other municipalities looking to effectively reduce light pollution. Along with was an option, we would then realize they're religious and cultural groups that use them because of the symbology of them. Plus, Hogmanay New Year is a massive cultural thing for Scotland, where fireworks are cultural significance. So we are like better put priority on low volume. Okay, yep. And it's also a stepping stone because later on, if you can raise awareness of the harms caused by it, and I get the cultural religious issues, but at some point, we should look towards getting rid of them altogether. Good stepping stone. It's a good compromise. Good job. Hope other cities will join the effort soon too. Finally, to sum all of this up better than I could, we have a very on-point letter to the editor of the Post-Gazette from someone who should know. Is this NDT? Oh my God, this is long. No, don't know. Don't know. All right, here we go. Oh, these silly astronomers. They can't see the stars over Pittsburgh, so they enlist the help of Mayor Bill Peduto to craft ordinance to make skies darker. So if they want to see their stars, why don't they just go out in the country? We need our lights to be safe, right? We need our lights to be safe, right? But wait, these astronomers are onto something, and if we follow their plan, we all reap the benefits. Proper nighttime lighting from shielded fixtures keeps illumination from pouring into the sky. It also improves visibility on the ground. Yep, because it focuses it, because you have reflectors in there. Making our streets and highways safer, these shielded fixtures keep light from shining into our eyes, thereby making it easier to see. And it makes them more efficient as well, using less electricity and less fossil fuels. Because less energy is wasted, we don't have to pay for outrageous electric bills. Take a look at a cloudy night over the city. See the white bottoms of the clouds? We should be appalled at that waste. Oh, right, yeah. Proper nighttime lighting also benefits animals and plants, which have evolved like humans in a day-night cycle. Living things need the dark just as much as they need the light. Yeah, and there was an article that I've read that animals of some sorts are evolving to deal with the lack of light, the lack of darkness. Because of this, by reducing nighttime lighting, we can also improve human health. Read about the adverse effects of bad nighttime lighting has on the body's production of melatonin and the corresponding increase in cancer rates in humans. For you poo-poo my illuminating claims, look into the research and take it for its proper worth. The National Dark Sky Association at darksky.org is a great place to start. My God, this is long. This is... Okay, almost done. Whew. Almost done. Can an urban area like Pittsburgh really reduce its light pollution substantially? Will private properties in the city catch on and make it the cool thing to do? Will kids in the Pittsburgh area grow up with an enhanced interest in astronomy and the universe because of this? Ah, that's a good thing. Let's hope so. I'm really enthused to see the earnest effort is underway. The Steel City is on its way to becoming the Star City. Before I go, I must give credit to the artist from whom I stole the first line of my diary. Okay, great article. All right, everyone, we've right about reached my 2-hour mark. And I give this last part as a moment for you guys to leave any random comments that you want to do before I go ahead and call this a day. And for those of you who are lurking, I stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central. And if you want to follow me, if you're on Twitch, you've got my links there in the About section. Discord, Facebook, Reddit, my blog, my policies, all that stuff is there. My Patreon is there too if you want to support me that way as well. So all of that is there. Good article. Good article. All right, any last moments? Any last comments? I also plan on implementing the Dutch model for at-source carbon capture, where they put specialized mesh in the chimney's production plants to filter out the soot, carbon, and chemicals out of the emissions, in which the carbon and stuff is taken up cycle industrial diamonds. Okay, that is awesome. That's awesome. That's exactly what we need to be doing. That's exactly it. You guys are awesome. Guess I'm moving to Scotland. That's cool, dude. Super cool. If only our country even could implement one of these things. Just one of these things. Just one. Just one. Please just do one. Yeah, it would be great. We need to do a lot more than we're not doing right now. Human extinction is coming, and we need to be doing a lot more like Scotland is doing. Most assuredly, Scotland puts the United States to shame. Well, most countries put the United States to shame. All right, last call for comments. Panda, thank you so much for showing up. I rarely see you, so it's good to see you here, and thanks for the update on everything that the Green Party is doing there. It gives me a minute bump in hope for humanity's future. I do appreciate that. It's good to see you're busy and doing some good work. Someone needs to be, by the gods. All right, last call. Going once, going twice. All right, everyone. Best hope in the U.S. Navy. It has an aircraft carrier for 360. Exactly right. Exactly right. All right, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you guys later. Stay COVID free. Love the environment. Love humanity. Peace out.
Just me and you, let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the stars turn blue. Watch the stars. We're all dreamers in our own way, trying to find